Welcome to the podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, created and produced by educator and author Marc Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring. Marc will be joined by Susan Brender, CEO and host of The Susan Brender Show. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories dealing with many interesting topics surrounding education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, sports, music, and more. A special aspect of our podcast is that the shows will also feature a teen guest host. We hope you enjoy our show, Lighting the Educational Flame.
Hi, I'm Marc Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring, along with Susan Brender of this new podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories focused on education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, and all aspects of stories that pertain to education. A main and unique feature of our show is that the most of our episodes will be guest hosted by different high school students from across the globe. I'd like to introduce the CEO of the Susan Brender Show, Susan Brender.
Well, thank you, Marc, for introducing me. I want our audience to know that I'm absolutely delighted that we're going to focus on kids because it's so important that we offer education and information to all the people out there. This is a very unique program in many, many ways, and I'm here with Marc Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring and creator of this podcast, Lighting the Educational Flame, and it's very exciting. And his teen guest host is Ziaire Benjamin. So welcome to the show.
So thank you, Susan, for that. And today's host hails from Spring Valley, New York, about 30 miles south of New York City. Ziaire Benjamin is 17 years old and will always be remembered as the very first student host of our podcast. Today, Ziaire will be interviewing me about study skills for students.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame. If you are a student or parent of a high school student, be sure to listen to the information at the end of today's broadcast to find out how you can be our next high school student guest host. I am happy to be here today interviewing the co-producer and co-host of this podcast, Marc Hoberman, who has owned Grade Success Tutoring for over 20 years. Marc, as a high school student, I sometimes have trouble taking notes in class, whether it's lecture notes or information from a text. What is the best way to take notes?
Well, Ziaire, it's important to stress quality over quantity here. I like students to use abbreviations that they can understand so they can expand their notes when it comes time to review. Studies have shown that you don't really learn when you first hear or read something. You actually learn and start to retain information as you review. Students should always use two different colors of ink or pencil when they take notes. This way it enables them to differentiate between terms, definitions, and anything else that they need to put into a certain category. And teens would also benefit by researching something called the Cornell note-taking system, which consists of a very powerful graphic organizer to enhance note-taking. Obviously, it started at the college, Cornell University, but now it's used in middle schools and high schools across the country.
Something that goes along with taking notes is reading. Students read at different levels and speeds. Do you have any strategies for reading effectively for optimum recall?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to preview a text before you actually read it. That means that you should focus on all bullet points, if the textbook, bold headings, pictures if they're available, any italicized text. When I tutor for the ACT and SAT, and this is either in person or when we do our online platform, I stress reading the first sentence of each paragraph first in order to get the gist of what the text is actually about, and then reading the entire text. So again, studies on this have shown that the reader will absorb information better when they previewed the text or the reading passage before they actually start doing the full reading.
When it comes to studying, people study in different ways. What is your opinion about students studying together in groups?
Well, that can be good. It can also be a double-edged sword. So while study groups can be very effective, all the participants have to be serious. They have to be mature about the study sessions. So I think in that case, it's best to assign certain tasks to individuals prior to the initial study session, so everyone in the group will have questions prepared that they think will help prepare the other group members. So different perspectives on lectures and text notes can help students really improve their test grades, but this should be in addition to private work and private studying, not instead of. And this actually goes hand in hand with the Common Core learning, because the Common Core stresses group work and working with partners.
Well, yeah, speaking of the Common Core, with curriculum always changing, it is often difficult for parents to help their children with homework. What is the best way for parents to assist their children in high school?
Well, even in any school, I think it's important for parents to email teachers to find out how they can assist with their children when it's needed. Different teachers have different strategies, and there's no, one right answer to this question. It's important to make sure your child has proper lighting, a quiet place to study. This can also, be a library or other quiet space. Parents also have to allow their children to make mistakes and learn from their errors. Doing the work for your children is a hindrance. It's not a help. I notice too many people, the parents really help their children more than they should. So it's okay to assist, but they should allow the children to do the work and fall on their own and get up on their own.
There's a lot of things. Time management is a big issue for a lot of teenagers. What can you give to help teens manage their time more effectively?
Well, you definitely need some sort of organizer. Different things work for different people, but, flying by the seat of your pants isn't really an option. So whether it's an agenda that some schools give out or you can buy, a homework pad, or even an app on your phone or your tablet, some sort of calendar is needed to manage your time effectively. Kids today just have a lot of stuff. They're inundated with homework, sports, a lot of extracurricular activities, and due dates for assignments, as well as other obligations. So it has to be put down in a set area, in the same area all the time, no matter what graphic organizer they're using. The biggest complaint I get from former students who are now in college is that they have trouble managing their time in school. So that's why organization skills need to be started in high school or even earlier.
Many juniors and seniors find standardized tests such as the SAT and the ACT difficult. How should a student prepare for these tests, and does everyone need to be tutored to do well?
Well, to be honest, even though I own a tutoring service, I can tell you that not everyone needs tutoring. That being said, a student who studies for these exams alone needs to be very regimented and have a plan for test prep. They even need to study vocabulary in some instances, math formulas, and most importantly, it's really about the strategies that will help them perform well. So as far as English is concerned, nothing's better than being an avid reader. It's also a good time for study groups if you can find others who are serious about preparing for these tests as well. So if you do choose to hire a tutor, just be sure it's someone you have researched or heard about from positive word-of-mouth reviews, someone who's an expert in that area. And there are several effective test prep books on the market. Again, I would read Amazon reviews on these books first, certain online sites such as Udemy, where I actually have an online course as well. Those can be helpful.
Can't students stay after school for extra help with these tests?
They can, but they have to make sure they stay with someone who's an expert in that test. For example, there are English teachers who aren't comfortable teaching and giving instruction for the SAT exam itself. Same thing with math. So as long as it's someone who's an expert in that field and on that test, if they can have their time to stay after school, that would be an excellent help.
Okay, Mark, speaking of extra help, why don't more students ask for and take advantage of extra help offered by teachers during and after school?
Well, this is sort of connected to your other question. It's usually a time management issue because, unfortunately, it's an issue of not prioritizing effectively sometimes as well. Many students feel that after-school time is their time and not school time. They don't realize that the knowledge they receive from extra help actually benefits them and not the school. It's for their benefit. So many kids have after-school responsibilities. They have jobs, and that can sometimes hinder their ability to stay for extra help, even sports teams. They have to really realize that extra help doesn't have to be given by their teacher also. They can get help from another instructor who teaches the same subject and even a peer who has a better grasp on the material. So in most cases, it's a matter of choice, but again, time management.
Okay. Although college is not for everyone, what is the best advice you can give our listeners today about preparing for college while in high school? Well,
there is a college advisement component to my business, and we tell students and parents that colleges now look for the overall, what we call the holistic student. It's not just about SAT or ACT grades and just your GPA. That's what it was back in the day when I was in high school. Now, combined with that is rigor of coursework, community service, job experience you may have, and your college essay as well as teacher recommendations. So I just caution students not to join 10 clubs in the 12th grade. Otherwise, the college is going to wonder what you did for the first 3 years of high school. For more information, I would urge our listeners to contact us at info@gradesuccess.com. And at this time, I think I'd like Susan to ask a couple of questions and weigh in on some of these matters.
Well, here, Mark, I haven't heard you nor Ziaire talk about the technology that exists today that wasn't available years and years ago. And I want to know from both of you how technology has improved the way you study and the way you kind of present yourself. How is it different from the way it was before? And you can start, Mark, by telling me.
Yes, I'll talk from the teachers' end, and I'm sure Ziaire has some excellent input from the team's perspective. I think it's great. Depends what you use. I mean, I have something called Remind 101. I can text all my students without knowing their cell phone numbers and remind them of the homework. I can do it automatically on email. I do planbook.com, where I have my lessons online also. And so technology has changed the game. We just have to be careful and make sure that students have the rudimentary skills to do what they need to do, because technology is very powerful, but it has to be used in concert with rudimentary skills and the fundamentals of education, not instead of. And I'm sure, Ziaire, you have some ways that you use, and some of your other teachers might use technology.
Well, I agree that technology is a powerful tool, but it can also mess teams up while studying, because there's a lot of information out there, but there's a lot of false information as well. So some of the old methods of studying are kind of better, like book work and stuff like that, because you have a sense of working for, like, learning what you're learning. When you go to a library and you try to find a book, you have to do a whole bunch of work. So I think that what you read sticks with you better. And so I would advise going to the library and reading books anyway. So, but technology can help sometimes with, like, math, maybe, stuff that you can't really mess up on.
You know, I'm interested also in understanding whether students really are interested in reading books, because everything, as I said before, is offered on the computer, and it seems to me that education needs people to read books, to do research, to do all kinds of things. So, Mark, is it still a question of whether or not a teacher can encourage children to read, or does this new technology just absolutely give students a chance to kind of, I don't want to say cheat, but read a little bit, like in Wikipedia, and get their information from that? What's your opinion of this?
Well, that's an excellent question. You know, I'm all about reading. Reading is the most important thing. You know, there's word problems on the math test. If you can't read well, you could be a math scholar. You're not going to do well. But I have to tell you that it doesn't have to be books anymore. I read books and on Kindle, and I have a lot of teacher friends who love to read, but they just want to hold a book in their hands. And those are the English teachers. Most other teachers from other subjects are more comfortable, I think, with the Kindle and whatnot. But some of us old school literary folk, as we say, really want to hold the book in our hands. I mean, I first met you when you interviewed me on my memoir, Search and Seizure, Overcoming Illness and Adversity, which is my memoir, and I taught that in school. So I bought the kids a class set of books, and I really enjoyed watching them read it and ask me questions. So just the reading and the give and take with an author, and just getting into characterization and things like that, very important. But any kind of reading, magazines, newspapers, reading is, I think, the panacea. I really do. I think you have to be well informed and educated. So it doesn't have to be a book per se, but just doing internet searches and that kind of reading is not enough. You really have to do books in any form, whether it be on a Nook or a Kindle or anything, electronic book, it's fine. But reading, to me, not just because I'm an English teacher, I believe reading is number one.
Now, Ziaire, you go to school and you're in 12th grade, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now, you've had about 4 years in high school. Have you seen a change from the way it was when you first started to the way it is now?
Like the dynamic of how students carry themselves, or
Correct.
More? Okay, well, yeah, some people changed and some people didn't. But usually the people that changed got the gist of what was going on. Coming into high school, you really have all this freedom, and it could help you, but it could also hurt you. So when people realize that, I feel that they do change and they become more serious. Like for me, I was a little bit more lazy when I started school, but as I grew older, I realized that this is a big part of my life, and it's going to affect the way I live for the rest of my life. So I took studying and my schoolwork a lot more serious. And it kind of sucked, though, because when you have a relationship with your schoolwork, it kind of affects your social life and how many friends you have and going out and stuff, because you have to choose your priorities.
Right. Yeah. Now, Mark, another thing about being a teacher, I know many, many teachers, and many of them have said to me, they said it's one of the most difficult professions in the world. Do you agree with that?
Well, I do agree with that. Actually, they say there's a study that the second most stressful job in the country is an inner city school teacher, and I taught in the Bronx for 10 years, so I can attest to that. But I have to tell you, it's also the most rewarding. So I've been doing it 33 years. I still love it. There's new curriculum, there's new students all the time, but it is very tough. You have to be lucky and have parents that support you. You have to have an administration that supports you, and you want to make sure that the children in front of you are receptive to your teaching and that you make a connection. And that's difficult because you're dealing with people who are not adults yet. They're just, entering the maturation process. And I see a tremendous difference. I mean, I knew Ziaire when he was in 9th grade. So, the difference that you see from year to year, especially from 9th to 12th, is really immense. And I love that, and I'm proud that I've been a part of that for some kids. So it is very difficult, but it's a very rewarding job. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, and Ziaire, I want to know, if you had a chance to really ask a question of Mark that is, an important thing for you to understand, what question would you want to ask him? Because there must be one thing that absolutely stands out. So what would that be?
I would ask, we spoke about time management before, and me and Mr. Hoberman spoke about organization and stuff a couple of times. I would ask, how do you consistently manage your time well, and how do you consistently stay organized? Because I've heard a whole bunch of ways to stay organized and manage my time, but as you get into the gist of things and things are throwing at you, it's kind of hard to stay on the schedule that you set up. So I want to know, how do you stay organized, and how do you manage your time well?
Excellent question. Ziaire will understand this better than most, because Ziaire is a big into sports. He's an excellent wrestler. And so it really is, it's about two things, prioritizing and practice. If you prioritize, people have to realize they're going to have setbacks. And if you don't let that setback get you down, and you keep moving forward, and if you take one step back, take 2 steps forward. So it really is about organizing yourself as best you can, and when things get too difficult, you have to start enlisting the help of others. You need to go to a friend and ask for help. You need to go to a teacher or even a parent. So, education is not a lonely game, it's a team game. And, as long as you stay the course and realize that you're going to take step backs every once in a while, as long as you just keep moving forward, enlist the help of others, and as long as you stay productive and consistent, that's, I think, a big.
I also have another question, Mr. Hoberman. For any teachers that are listening in on this, I know that I had a lot of trouble asking for help, mainly probably because of pride or whatever the case may be. Some students are very shy to ask for help or extra help. How do you suggest teachers make students feel more comfortable to ask for help?
That's a great question. I'm going to tell you, this podcast is something that can help with that, because we need the young people who are listening to this podcast and in the schools to know that they need to also help, because there are some shy people. And I have kids in my class who have realized that students have needed help before I have. I mean, I have over 100 students, but they're sitting in a class in a group of 4, and they see someone in their group needs help, and they start to help them. It makes people more receptive of asking for assistance. So although the teachers need to be a big part of that, I think Ziaire, as a leader of in the school, he's part of something called the Superintendent Circle that we have in our school district. And I think that we need the students to step up to the plate a little bit, and they have to try to assist people who are in need academically and otherwise as well.
Mark, let me ask you something about the parents. We've been talking all about the kids and the things that they need and the help that they can give to another student, but we haven't discussed parents. Now, where do the parents fit into this scenario, if you will?
Well, I think that education is a triangle. I think it's the student, the parent, and the school. And within the school, I mean the teacher, administration, guidance counselors, things of that nature. But I think the parents need to be more receptive and more, I don't want to say aggressive, but more in tune to different teachers' expectations, what they need, what they're not getting, and ask them, how can I help you help my child? I saw a cartoon about 10 months ago, and it said parents, and it said 1970, and it had the parents holding a bad report card and saying to their child, what's the meaning of this? And then it says 2015 or 2016, and they're holding a report card, and they're looking at the teacher, and they're saying, what's the meaning of this? So instead of playing the blame game, if somebody doesn't do well, I think before a person fails a course, there's got to be a lot of discussion between the parent and the teacher. But they all need to work together and say, I'm not doing what I need to do, or my child's not getting the grades I think he can get. What can we do together? What can I do for you, Mr. and Mrs. Teacher, Mr. and Miss Teacher, to assist my child? And I think that, the parent has to work with the school. And I think, conversely, the school needs to be more in tune to working with the parents and bringing the parents into the school community, into the school culture.
Yeah. Now, last thing for you, Ziaire. As a student who is going to graduate, what advice would you give the other students? Because needless to say, you sound like you are a fabulous student and you really recognize the issues that the education system is dealing with. So what would you tell the student?
I would tell them that despite whatever situation they're in or how they did growing up or what they did in the past, they control their future, and it's never really too late to change. I would say that they should really take things seriously and try to form relationships and network relationships with their teachers, relationships with administration in the school, even if they don't know or have those teachers or come in contact with administration. Go out of your way to make relationships with as many people as you can, because that would benefit you, and then you would be less likely to have yourself stuck in a hole when you need help or with your work or anything. So when I was in high school, I joined a lot of sports teams. By my senior year, I was captain of the wrestling team and the tennis team. And so I also formed relationships with other students. I got scholarships and stuff to go away to different programs over the summer. I really tried to get my name out there in a sense, and just be yourself. Don't be scared to be yourself, because you'll get stuck trying to fit in, and there's nobody else like you. So just be yourself, and you'll find the right people.
Part of what the Susan Brender Show does is to educate people like Ziaire how to produce and implement their own radio podcast. We can teach men, women, and teens how to do this without paying thousands of dollars a year to be hosted on someone else's radio show. Contact me at scbrender@yahoo.com for information on doing your own radio podcast and having a voice in your community. Today, our guest has been Ziaire, and I want to turn this over to Mark because you can probably finish off with another question for Ziaire, and you can tell us why you think that what we're doing today is such a useful and very important thing to do.
Well, it's the proof is in the pudding. Today I'm the guest on the show, but Ziaire is really like the star, and that's what we want to do. We want to make the teenagers the stars. We want the guest host of every episode. We want to interview athletes and Olympic athletes and celebrities and people in education and child psychologists to really help benefit not just the students but the parents as well. I think this is one of those shows that can be a crossover show that parents can listen to with their children and learn more about how to navigate success in education. And I'm just so proud that we have a student such as Ziaire, and that we have this platform to highlight what's special about him. And I just hope that people learn some things about studying, and I hope that they're going to listen in. There's going to be many more shows and many more podcasts to listen to. And I'm just going to turn it over to Ziaire to close it out.
Okay, Mark, thanks so much for being with us today. I want to thank you for creating this program, which will definitely help students of all ages as well as their parents manage their time and educational goals more effectively. This is Ziaire Benjamin from Spring Valley, New York, thanking all of you for listening today and reminding you that we will have many more exciting and informative podcasts in the near future. Be sure to listen to our contact info in case you have questions or comments. We'll love to hear them. And, of course, contact us if you'd like to be a team guest host on our show.
Thank you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@gradesuccess.com.